The morning sun was warm on Kang Tae's face as he worked in his small garden. He liked the feel of dirt between his fingers. It reminded him that he was alive, that the war was over, that he could finally rest. His colony was called New Eden. It sat on a quiet planet at the edge of human space. The people who lived here were simple farmers, teachers, and traders. At least, that was what they told everyone. The truth was different. Many of them had come here to forget, to heal, to leave behind the things they had done in service of Earth. Tae pulled a weed from the ground and threw it aside. He was 52 years old now. His hair was gray at the sides. His hands were rough from years of work, but his eyes were still sharp. They would always be sharp. Some things you could not unlearn. A shadow fell over him. He looked up and saw Yoon Hana standing there with a basket of vegetables. She was 10 years younger than him. With short black hair and a kind smile, she had been a field medic during the border wars. Now she ran the colony's small medical clinic. "You missed breakfast," she said. "I was not hungry. You are never hungry. But you still need to eat." Tae smiled and stood up slowly. His knees hurt these days. "Another gift from the old times." "Fine. But only because you asked nicely." They walked together toward the main village. New Eden was not a big place. Maybe 200 people lived here. There was a school, a market, a few workshops, and rows of small houses made from local wood and stone. It was peaceful, quiet, the kind of place where nothing bad ever happened. That changed at exactly noon. The first sign was a shadow that blocked out the sun. Tae looked up and felt his blood turn cold. A ship was descending from the sky. It was massive and dark, shaped like a curved blade. He knew that design. Everyone in the galaxy knew that design. "Velthari, get everyone inside," Tae said. His voice was calm but hard. The voice he had not used in 15 years. Hana did not ask questions. She dropped her basket and ran toward the village center, shouting warnings. People started moving. Parents grabbed children. Shopkeepers closed their doors, but they were not fast enough. They were never going to be fast enough. The Velthari ship landed at the edge of the village with a sound like thunder. Its doors opened, and soldiers poured out. They were tall creatures, nearly 8 feet high. With gray skin and 4 arms, their eyes were black and empty. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. Tae counted them quickly. 40 soldiers, maybe 50. Too many to fight without weapons. Too many to fight at all. A Velthari officer stepped forward. He wore golden bands on his upper arms, marking his rank. When he spoke, his voice came through a translator device on his chest. "Humans, you will come with us. Do not resist. Resistance will be punished with death." An old man near Tae stepped forward. His name was Park Do, and he had been a schoolteacher for 30 years. "Please," he said. "We are just farmers. We have nothing of value. Why are you doing this?" The officer looked at him with those empty black eyes. Then he raised his weapon and fired. Park Do fell to the ground and did not move again. "That is why," the officer said. "Because we can. Because you are weak. Because the Velthari Empire takes what it wants. And no one can stop us." Tae felt something stir inside him. Something dark and old. Something he had buried deep. His hands wanted to move. His body wanted to fight. But he forced himself to stay still. Not yet. Not here. There were too many innocents around him. The Velthari soldiers moved through the village like a wave. They grabbed people and dragged them toward the ship. Anyone who fought back was beaten. Anyone who ran was shot. In less than an hour, they had taken 30 humans. Men, women, and children. They were pushed into the cargo hold of the ship like animals. Tae was one of them. So was Hana. So were others he recognized. Kim, who had been a sniper. Lee Soo, who had worked in military intelligence. Baek Mira, who had been an explosives expert. And more. So many more. The Velthari did not know it, but they had just made the worst mistake of their lives. The cargo hold was dark and cold. Metal walls surrounded them on all sides. There were no windows, no seats, just a hard floor and the sound of crying children. Tay sat with his back against the wall. He looked around at the other prisoners. Most of them were scared. Some were angry. A few were crying. But here and there, he saw faces he knew, faces that were calm, faces that were waiting. Hana sat down beside him. She spoke in a whisper. I counted 7. 7 what? 7 of us. From the old unit. Tay nodded slowly. 7 former Ghost Division soldiers. 7 of the most dangerous humans ever trained. The Velthari had taken them by accident, thinking they were just simple farmers. There might be more, Hana said. I saw some faces I did not recognize. But they moved like soldiers. We wait, Tay said. We watch. We learn. And then we teach these aliens what happens when you hunt the wrong prey. The ship shook as it lifted off from the ground. Through the metal walls, Tay could hear the engines roaring. They were leaving New Eden. Leaving everything he had built. Everything he had tried to become, but that was okay. Because Kang Tay had been someone else before he was a farmer. He had been a weapon. The sharpest weapon Earth had ever made. And weapons did not forget how to kill. A young boy was crying nearby. His mother held him close, but she could not stop his tears. Hana stood up and walked over to them. She knelt down and spoke softly to the child. Within minutes, he had stopped crying. That was Hana's gift. She could heal with words as easily as with medicine. Tay watched her work. She was the heart of their group. He was the blade. Together, they had survived things that would break most people. They would survive this too. The hours passed slowly. The ship traveled through space, taking them further and further from home. The prisoners were given no food, no water, no information. The Velthari treated them like cargo, like things without value, but Tay used the time well. He watched the guards who came to check on them. He memorized their patrol patterns. He studied their weapons. He noted which ones were alert and which ones were lazy, and quietly, using hand signals from the old days, he began to talk to the others. Kim Jun, Lee Soo, Baek Mira. One by one, they received his message. One by one, they understood. They were not prisoners. They were a unit, and the mission had already begun. 3 days passed on the Velthari ship. 3 days of darkness. 3 days of hunger. 3 days of watching and waiting. The prisoners were kept in the cargo hold like animals. Once a day, guards would bring a single container of water and a pile of dry food blocks. It was barely enough to survive. The Velthari did not care if their cargo was comfortable. They only cared that it was alive. Tay had used every hour wisely. By now, he knew the patrol schedules by heart. Guards came every 4 hours, 2 at a time. They would walk through the cargo hold, count the prisoners, and leave. They never spoke to the humans. They barely looked at them. That was their first mistake. On the second day, Tay had identified 11 former soldiers among the prisoners. Not just 7. 11. Some he had known during the border wars. Others he recognized by the way they moved, the way they watched, the way they stayed calm when everyone else was afraid. Hana had found 4 more who had medical training. Not soldiers, but useful. People who could treat wounds. People who could keep others alive when things got bad. And things were going to get bad. We need weapons, Kim Jun whispered. He was sitting beside Tay, pretending to sleep. In the darkness, no one could see his lips moving. I can take 2 guards with my hands. But the others have energy rifles. We will get weapons, Tay said. But not yet. First, we need to know where we are going. Does it matter? Yes. If we take this ship in deep space, we die. No food. No fuel. No way to call for help. We need to wait until we are close to something. A station. A planet. Anything. June nodded slowly. He did not like waiting. None of them did. but they understood. Patience was the first lesson of the Ghost Division. Strike too early, and you fail. Strike too late, and you miss your chance. Strike at the right moment, and nothing can stop you. Hana moved through the prisoners, checking on the weak ones. The children were suffering the most. They were hungry and scared. Some of them had not spoken in days. She did what she could with words and gentle touches, but it was not enough. It was never enough. She stopped beside an old woman named Choi Soon. The woman had been a librarian on New Eden. Now she sat in the corner, staring at nothing. Her husband had been killed during the raid, shot in the back while trying to protect her. "You need to drink," Hana said softly. She held out a small cup of water. Soon looked at her with empty eyes. "Why? What is the point?" "The point is that you are alive. And while you are alive, there is hope." "Hope for what?" "My husband is dead. My home is gone. We are slaves now." Hana took the old woman's hand. "We are not slaves. Not yet. And maybe not ever. I cannot tell you more than that. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Something flickered in Soon's eyes. A tiny spark of something. Maybe curiosity. Maybe faith. She took the cup and drank. Hana smiled and moved on to the next person. That was her job. Keep them alive. Keep them quiet. Keep them ready. On the third day, the ship stopped. Tay felt it first. The vibration of the engines changed. The constant hum that had filled the cargo hold for 3 days suddenly went quiet. They were no longer moving. A few minutes later, the cargo door opened. Bright light poured in, blinding the prisoners. Guards shouted orders in the Velthari language. Rough hands grabbed people and pulled them to their feet. "Move, all of you, now!" The prisoners stumbled forward, shielding their eyes from the light. They were led down a long ramp and into a massive hangar. The ceiling was so high that Tay could barely see it. Ships of all sizes filled the space. Workers moved everywhere, carrying cargo, repairing machines, shouting at each other. It was a space station, a big one. Tay stored the information in his mind. Space station meant other ships, other people, ways to escape, ways to send a message. The prisoners were marched through the hangar and into a series of hallways. The walls were metal and gray. The lights were harsh and white. Everything smelled like oil and chemicals. Finally, they reached a large room filled with cages, metal cages, stacked 3 high, each one just big enough for a person to sit in. This was where they would be kept. This was their new prison. "Inside," a guard said. "1 per cage. Anyone who resists will be punished." The prisoners did as they were told. One by one, they climbed into the cages. The doors were locked behind them. Metal bars pressed against their backs and sides. There was no room to stand, no room to stretch, barely room to breathe. Tay was placed in a cage on the 2nd level. He could see Hana 3 cages to his left. Kim Jun was somewhere below him. The others were scattered throughout the room. This was bad. They were separated now. Communication would be harder. Coordinated action would be nearly impossible. But Tay did not let himself feel despair. He had been in worse situations. He had escaped from worse places. This was just another problem to solve. For the next 2 days, he watched and learned. The guards changed shifts every 6 hours. There were always 4 of them in the room. 2 at the door. 2 walking between the cages. They carried shock sticks instead of rifles. Easier to control prisoners without killing them. The prisoners were fed twice a day. A guard would walk down each row, pushing food and water into the cages. During feeding time, the cage doors were opened briefly. Just a few seconds, but a few seconds was enough. On the 5th day, something changed. A group of aliens entered the room. They were not Velthari. They were shorter, with blue skin and large yellow eyes. They wore expensive clothes and carried data pads. Buyers, they had come to inspect the merchandise. The aliens walked slowly down the rows, pointing at certain prisoners, making notes on their pads. They stopped in front of a young woman named Song Yuna. She had been a teacher on New Eden. Now she pressed herself against the back of her cage, trembling with fear. "This one is young," one of the buyers said. "Healthy. She will bring a good price." "Humans are popular right now," another buyer agreed. "Exotic. Rare. The markets on Velcor pay well for them." They moved on, examining other prisoners like they were examining fruit at a market. Tay watched with cold eyes. Slave traders. They were going to be sold as slaves. He looked at Hana. She met his gaze and gave a tiny nod. She understood. They could not wait any longer. That night, after the guards changed shifts, Tay began to move. He reached into his shoe and pulled out a small piece of metal. It had been part of Park Du's glasses. Tay had taken it from the old man's body before the Velthari dragged him away. A small thing. A useless thing, unless you knew how to use it. Tay worked the metal into the lock of his cage. His fingers moved slowly, carefully. He had done this 1,000 times during training. Pick a lock in the dark. Pick a lock while bleeding. Pick a lock while people were trying to kill you. This was easy. The lock clicked open. Tay did not move. Not yet. He waited until the patrolling guards turned their backs. Then he slipped out of his cage and dropped silently to the floor. He moved like a shadow, like smoke, like something that was not really there. In 3 seconds, he reached Hana's cage. In 5 seconds, he had her lock open. She climbed out and landed beside him without a sound. Together, they began to free the others, one by one, cage by cage, silent as death. The guards did not notice. They never noticed. They had grown lazy. They had grown confident. They were about to learn why that was a mistake. Within 20 minutes, all 11 soldiers were free. They gathered in the darkness at the far end of the room. No words were spoken. None were needed. They communicated through looks and gestures, just like the old days. Tay pointed at the guards. He held up 4 fingers. Then he made a cutting motion across his throat. The others nodded. They spread out, moving through the shadows. Each one knew their target. Each one knew what to do. Tay reached the first guard from behind. His hand covered the alien's mouth. His arm wrapped around its neck. A quick twist, and it was over. 4 guards. 4 seconds. 4 bodies hitting the floor. The awakening had begun. The 4 Velthari guards lay motionless on the cold metal floor. The room was silent, except for the quiet breathing of the freed prisoners. Tay stood over the bodies. His hands steady. His heart calm. This was what he had been made for. This was what he had tried so hard to forget. But some things could not be forgotten. Some skills lived in the bone. Kim Jun picked up one of the shock sticks and tested its weight. Light. Good balance. It will work. Take what you can carry, Tay said quietly. We move in 2 minutes. The soldiers worked quickly. They took the guards' weapons, communication devices, and access cards. Hana found a medical kit on one of the bodies and strapped it to her belt. Every small advantage mattered now. The other prisoners watched in stunned silence. Most of them were still in their cages, afraid to move, afraid to believe what they were seeing. The old woman, Choi, Soon, was the first to speak. What is happening? She whispered. Who are you people? Tay walked to her cage and opened the door. We are nobody special, just farmers who used to be soldiers. Now we are going home, and we are taking all of you with us. He turned to face the room. Listen carefully. We are on a Velthari space station. In a few minutes, the guards will miss their check-in. When that happens, alarms will sound. Soldiers will come. It will be dangerous. The prisoners stared at him with wide eyes. Stay close to us. Do exactly what we say. If we tell you to run, you run. If we tell you to hide, you hide. If we tell you to be silent, you do not make a sound. Do you understand? Heads nodded throughout the room. Good, now move. The soldiers took positions around the group, Tay at the front, Kim Jun at the back, the others spread along the sides. They formed a protective shell around the civilians, ready to shield them from whatever came next. The door to the hallway was locked. Li Su, the intelligence specialist, stepped forward with one of the stolen access cards. She pressed it against the panel. A red light flashed. "Wrong level of clearance," she said calmly. "Give me 30 seconds." She pulled a small tool from her pocket. It was made from wire and a broken piece of metal from her cage. Not much to look at. But in her hands, it was enough. She opened the panel and began working on the wires inside. 28 seconds later, the door slid open. The hallway beyond was empty. Dim lights ran along the ceiling, casting long shadows on the gray walls. The air smelled like recycled oxygen and fear. "Move," Tay said. They moved. The group traveled in near silence. 30 people, walking through enemy territory, guided by soldiers who had not fought in years, but had never truly stopped being dangerous. Every corner was checked. Every sound was analyzed. Every door was treated as a potential threat. They had traveled for maybe 5 minutes when the alarms started. Red lights began flashing along the walls. A loud siren filled the air, drowning out everything else. Then came a voice, speaking in the Velthari language, repeating the same message over and over. "Alert, alert. Prisoner escape in progress. All units respond. Alert, alert." "They know," June said grimly. "It does not matter," Tay replied. "Keep moving." But moving was about to get much harder. Boots thundered in the distance, the sound of Velthari soldiers running toward them. Tay pointed to a side corridor, and the group quickly changed direction. They ducked into a storage room just as a squad of guards rushed past. "How many?" Hannah whispered. 8, maybe 10. "We cannot fight that many. Not with civilians behind us. Then we do not fight. We hunt." Tay turned to the other soldiers. "New plan. We split up. Half of us stay with the civilians and keep moving toward the hangar. The other half draws the guards away." "A distraction," Mira said. She was smiling. It was not a nice smile. "I like it. Mira, you take Li Su and 2 others. Make noise, break things, lead them on a chase, but do not get caught, do not get killed. Meet us at the hangar in 30 minutes. And if we are not there, then we leave without you." Mira nodded. She understood. The mission came first. The civilians came first. Individual soldiers were secondary. She gathered her team and disappeared into the shadows. A moment later, Tay heard a loud explosion somewhere in the distance. Then another. Then screaming alarms and running feet, all moving away from their position. "Now," Tay said. The group moved again, faster this time. The hallways were emptier now. Most of the guards had been pulled toward the explosions, toward the fire and chaos that Mira was creating. But not all of them. They came around a corner and found themselves face to face with 2 Velthari soldiers. For a heartbeat, everyone froze. The aliens stared at the humans. The humans stared back. Then Tay moved. He crossed the distance in less than a second. His hand grabbed the first soldier's weapon and pushed it aside. His other hand struck the alien's throat. The soldier dropped, choking. Kim Jun was right behind him. He hit the second soldier with a shock stick, and the alien crumpled to the floor. "Keep moving," Tay said. He did not even look back. The hangar was close now. Tay could smell the fuel and oil. He could hear the sound of engines and machinery. Just a little further. Just a few more minutes. They burst through a final door and found themselves in the massive hangar bay. Ships filled the space. Workers and guards moved everywhere. It was chaos. Beautiful. Useful chaos. "There," Hannah said, pointing. "That ship. Velthari transport, civilian class. I can fly it." The ship was medium-sized, with a curved hull and powerful engines. It was designed to carry cargo, not fight battles. Perfect for an escape. "How many guards around it?" Tay asked. 4. No, 5. 1 near the ramp. The others by the fuel station. "We take them together. June, you have the one by the ramp. I will handle the others." "What about me?" Hannah asked. "Get the civilians inside. Start the engines. Be ready to fly the moment we are aboard." They moved. The hangar was noisy enough to cover their approach. Workers were shouting. Machines were running. Alarms were still blaring in the distance. No one noticed the group of humans walking calmly toward the transport ship, until it was too late. June reached the guard by the ramp and put him down with a single strike. The alien never even saw him coming. Tay was already among the others, moving faster than they could react. His stolen shock stick crackled with energy. Bodies fell. Screams were cut short. 5 seconds, 5 guards, all down. Inside, Tay shouted. Everyone inside now. The civilians ran up the ramp, stumbling over each other in their haste to escape. Hana was already in the cockpit, her fingers flying over the controls. The engines roared to life, but they were not done yet. More Velthari soldiers were pouring into the hangar. They had finally realized where the humans were heading. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. All armed, all angry. "Close the ramp," Tay yelled. "Mira is not here yet," June shouted back. "I know. Close it anyway." "But that is an order." June's face twisted with pain. But he obeyed. He hit the button, and the ramp began to rise. Energy blasts started hitting the hull. The Velthari were firing at them now. The ship shook with each impact. Tay grabbed a support beam to steady himself. "Hana, get us out of here." Working on it, the ship lurched forward, guards scattered out of its way. More blasts hit the hull. Warning lights began flashing on the control panels. And then, at the last possible moment, a figure came running out of the chaos. Bake Mira. She was covered in burns and blood, but she was alive. She was still alive. "Wait," Tay screamed. Hana did not ask why. She trusted him. She always had. The ship slowed just enough for Mira to leap through a side hatch. She rolled onto the floor, gasping for breath. "The others?" Tay asked. Mira shook her head. No words were needed. The ship shot forward, bursting out of the hangar and into the blackness of space. Behind them, the Velthari station grew smaller and smaller, until it was just a dot of light among the stars. They were free, but the hunt was not over yet. The stolen transport ship drifted through the cold silence of space. Inside, the rescued prisoners sat in tired groups, finally allowing themselves to breathe. Some were crying softly. Others simply stared at nothing, unable to believe they were still alive. Tay stood at the front of the cargo bay, watching them. 28 people had escaped. 2 soldiers had been lost during the distraction. Good people, brave people, he would remember their names forever. Hana came down from the cockpit, her face pale with exhaustion. "We are clear of the station's weapons range. No ships are following us. Yet. How long until they send pursuit? An hour, maybe 2. They will need to organize, figure out what happened, but they will come." Tay nodded slowly. He had expected this. Running was not enough. The Velthari Empire was vast and powerful. They would chase this little ship across the galaxy if they had to. They could not allow humans to escape. It would make them look weak. "What about communications?" he asked. "The ship has a long-range transmitter, but I do not know the frequencies for human space." Kim Jun stepped forward. "I do. Standard emergency channel. If we broadcast on that frequency, any human ship in range will hear us." "Do it." June moved toward the cockpit, but before he could reach it, Bake Mira grabbed his arm. "Wait," she said. Her voice was rough from the smoke she had breathed during the escape. Burns covered her arms and face, but her eyes were bright with something, an idea. "Just calling for help is not enough. By the time anyone reaches us, the Velthari will have caught us again." "Then what do you suggest?" Tay asked. "We send 2 messages. One to human space, asking for help, and one to the Velthari." The room went quiet. Everyone stared at Mira. "What kind of message?" Hana asked slowly. Mira smiled. It was the same dangerous smile she always wore before doing something crazy. "We send them the coordinates of this ship. We tell them exactly where we are. We invite them to come and get us." "That is insane," June said flatly. You want to lead them right to us? No, I want to make them angry. I want them to come fast and stupid. I want them to chase us so hard that they do not think about what they are running into. Tay understood. It was a hunting strategy. When you wanted to catch dangerous prey, sometimes you used bait. Sometimes you let them think they were the hunters, right up until the moment they realized they were the hunted. And what are they running into? He asked. Mira pointed out the viewport at a distant point of light. That is the Kepler boundary, the edge of human space. If we can lead them there, we lead them into range of the defense fleet. The defense fleet will not engage without authorization from Earth Command. They will if we are under attack. They will if Velthari warships are firing on a ship full of human civilians. Mira's smile grew wider. We do not just escape, we start a war. The room was silent for a long moment. The weight of what she was suggesting hung in the air. Starting a war with the Velthari Empire was not a small thing. It would mean death for thousands, maybe millions, but the Velthari had started this. They had raided a peaceful colony. They had murdered civilians. They had planned to sell human beings as slaves. We vote, Tay said finally. Everyone votes, not just the soldiers. Everyone. He looked around the room at the tired, frightened faces. These were not warriors. They were teachers and farmers and shopkeepers. They had lost their homes, their families, their entire lives. And now they were being asked to decide the fate of two civilizations. All in favor of sending the message, Tay said. Raise your hand. For a moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the old woman Choi Soon raised her hand. Her face was set with quiet determination. They killed my husband, she said simply. They would have sold us like animals. I say we fight. One by one, other hands went up. The young teacher, Song Yuna, the children's parents, the shopkeepers, the farmers, all of them, 28 hands in the air. Unanimous. Tay nodded. Then we send the message. They moved to the cockpit. June worked the communication controls, while Hana kept the ship on course toward the Kepler boundary. The rest of the soldiers stood guard, watching the viewports for any sign of pursuit. The first message was simple. A distress call on the human emergency frequency. This is transport vessel calling any human ship. We are escaped prisoners from the Velthari Empire. We have civilians aboard, including children. We are being pursued. Request immediate assistance. Coordinates attached. June sent the message and waited. Static filled the speakers. Then, after what felt like forever, a response came through. Transport vessel, this is Earth Defense Ship Hammer of Dawn. We read you. Assistance is on the way. Hold your position. A cheer went up from the civilians. Help was coming. They were going to be saved. But Tay did not celebrate. Not yet. The second message still needed to be sent. He sat down at the communication station and began to speak. His voice was calm and cold. The voice of the soldier he had once been. The message was broadcast on an open frequency, one that any ship in the sector could hear. Attention Velthari Empire. This is Kang Tay, former commander of Earth's Ghost Division. You attacked my home. You killed my people. You tried to make us slaves. This was a mistake. He paused, letting the words sink in. We have taken one of your ships. We have killed your soldiers. We have freed our people. And now we are giving you a choice. Turn back, leave human space forever. Accept that you have failed. Or come after us and face the consequences. You think you are predators. You think we are prey. But you do not know anything about humans. We are not prey. We are the apex hunters of our world. For millions of years, nothing could catch us. Nothing could kill us. We are persistence predators. We do not stop. We do not quit. We chase our prey until it falls from exhaustion. And then we finish it. So come after us if you want. We will be waiting. And when your fleets burn, when your soldiers die, when your empire crumbles, remember this moment. Remember that you had a chance to walk away. Remember that you chose war. Congratulations. You have officially triggered a war with humanity's apex hunters. He ended the transmission. The cockpit was silent. Everyone stared at him with wide eyes. Hana was the first to speak. That was a declaration of war, she said softly. Yes. Earth Command will not be happy. Earth Command can court-martial me later. Right now, we need to survive. Trom. As if on cue, the sensors began to beep. Multiple contacts were appearing on the edge of detection range. Velthari ships. Lots of them. They had received the message, and they were coming fast. Time to run, Tay said. Hana. Full speed toward the boundary. On it. The transport ship lurched forward, its engines straining at maximum power. Behind them, the Velthari fleet grew larger and closer. Weapons began charging. Target locks were established, but ahead of them, something else was appearing on the sensors. Human ships. Military vessels. The Hammer of Dawn and its escort fleet. Racing to meet them, the two fleets were on a collision course, and in the middle, a small transport ship, full of farmers and teachers and shopkeepers, flew toward safety, toward home, toward war. The void between stars had never seemed so empty, yet so crowded. On one side, the Velthari fleet advanced like a wall of death. 12 warships, their hulls black as night, their weapons glowing with terrible energy. On the other side, the human defense fleet held position. 7 ships, smaller than the Velthari vessels, but armed with weapons that had ended wars. And in the middle, the stolen transport ship raced toward safety. Distance to the boundary? Tay asked. 4 minutes, Hana replied. Her hands were steady on the controls, but her voice was tight with tension. The Velthari are gaining on us. Will we make it? It will be close. Tay looked out the viewport at the approaching human fleet. The Hammer of Dawn was at the center, a massive battleship bristling with cannons and missile tubes. Its escort ships spread out in a defensive formation, creating a wall between the transport and the enemy. A new voice came through the communication system. Deep and commanding. Transport vessel. This is Admiral 1 of the Hammer of Dawn. You have caused quite a situation here. I apologize for the trouble, Admiral, Tay said. But we did not have many options. No, I suppose you did not. There was a hint of something in the Admiral's voice. Respect, maybe, or amusement. Your message has been heard across the sector. Earth Command is scrambling to figure out what to do. Half of them want to promote you. The other half want to arrest you. And you, Admiral? Me? I think the Velthari have been testing our borders for years, looking for weakness. They finally found out what happens when they push too hard. A pause. Bye. Get your people behind our lines, Commander. We will handle the rest. The transport ship shot past the human fleet and into protected space. The moment they crossed the invisible line of the Kepler boundary, the human ships moved forward. They formed a barrier between the transport and the pursuing Velthari. The two fleets faced each other across the darkness. For a long moment, nothing happened. The Velthari ships slowed and stopped just outside human space. Their weapons were still charged, still aimed at the transport. But they did not fire. Then, on the open communication channel, a Velthari voice spoke. It was cold and filled with rage. Humans, you have stolen our property. You have killed our soldiers. You have insulted the Empire. Return the prisoners immediately, or there will be consequences. Admiral 1's response was calm and measured. The people on that transport are not property. They are citizens of Earth. You attacked their colony without cause. You killed innocents. You attempted to enslave free people. According to galactic law, that is an act of war. We do not recognize your laws. We recognize only strength. Then let me show you strength. The Hammer of Dawn moved forward. Just a little. Just enough to make a point. Its weapons systems hummed to full power. The other human ships followed, their own weapons ready. You have 12 ships, Admiral 1 said. I have 7. You think that gives you an advantage. But let me tell you something about humans. since you clearly do not understand us. We are not a prey species. We are hunters, the most successful hunters our planet ever produced. For millions of years, we chased animals across the plains until they collapsed from exhaustion. We built tools to kill creatures 10 times our size. We spread across our world and dominated every environment we found. And when we reached the stars, we did not stop hunting. We just found bigger prey. The Velthari fleet hesitated. On their sensors, they could see more human ships appearing in the distance. Reinforcements. Coming fast. You wanted to take 30 of our people. The admiral continued. 30 farmers and teachers and children. You thought we were soft. Weak. You thought we would not notice. You thought we would not care. You were wrong. Every human matters to us. Every single one. When you took those people, you did not just commit a crime. You declared war on humanity. And humanity has never lost a war we cared about winning. The Velthari commander's voice came back, less confident now. You are bluffing. You would not start a galactic war over 30 slaves. They are not slaves. They were never slaves. And yes, we absolutely would. On the transport ship, Tay watched the confrontation with quiet intensity. Beside him, Hana stood with her arms crossed. The other prisoners crowded around every viewport, watching the standoff that would decide their fate. Little Yuna, the teacher, was holding the hand of a small boy. His name was Park Bin, and he had lost both parents during the raid. Yuna had been caring for him ever since. Now they watched together as the future of two civilizations hung in the balance. Are we going to be okay? Bin asked. Yuna looked down at him and smiled gently. Yes. We are going to be okay. The soldiers came for us. Just like I promised. Out in space, the Velthari fleet was beginning to retreat. Not fast, not obviously. But their formation was loosening. Their weapons were powering down. They had expected easy prey. And instead, they had found a predator waiting for them. This is not over, the Velthari commander said. The Empire will remember this insult. Good, Admiral One replied. Remember it well. Remember what happened when you attacked our people. Remember what we are willing to do to protect them. And remember that next time, we will not be so patient. The Velthari ships turned and began moving away. Slowly at first, then faster, until they were just dots of light retreating into the darkness. A cheer erupted on the transport ship. People hugged each other, crying with relief. The old woman Choi Soon fell to her knees and whispered a prayer of thanks. Kim Jun actually laughed, a sound Tae had not heard from him in 15 years. But Tae did not celebrate. He stood at the viewport and watched the retreating enemy fleet. This was not a victory. It was the beginning of something much larger. The Velthari would be back. They would come with more ships, more soldiers, more anger, and humanity would be ready for them. Hana came to stand beside him. What happens now? She asked. Now we go home. We bury our dead. We rebuild what was destroyed. He paused. And we prepare for what is coming. War. Yes, war. She was quiet for a moment. Do you think we can win? Tae thought about the question carefully. The Velthari Empire was vast and powerful. They had hundreds of worlds and millions of soldiers. Humanity was smaller, younger, less experienced in galactic politics. But humanity had something the Velthari did not understand. Something they could not understand. When I was a young soldier, Tae said slowly, my commander told me something I never forgot. He said that humans are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the fastest. We are not the smartest. But we are the most stubborn. He said that when a human decides to do something, nothing in the universe can stop them. Not distance, not pain, not fear, not death. We just keep going, forever, until we get what we want, or we die trying. The Velthari think they are predators. But they have never met a species like us. They do not know what it means to be hunted by something that never stops, never rests, never forgets. He turned to look at Hana. His eyes were calm and certain. Yes, we can win. Because we are humanity's apex hunters. And we have just begun to hunt. The transport ship flew on toward Earth, carrying its cargo of survivors and heroes. Behind them, the human fleet stood guard, watching the stars for any sign of the enemy. The first battle was over, but the war had just begun, and somewhere in the darkness, the Velthari Empire was about to learn the true meaning of fear. They had made an enemy they did not understand, an enemy that would chase them across the galaxy if necessary. An enemy that remembered every wrong and repaid it 100 times over. They had triggered a war with humanity's apex hunters, and humanity was coming for them.